Good morning. Hey guys, it's Monday. I hope you had a great weekend. Today we are on day 14 of Module 2 in our Wit and Wisdom program. So let's go ahead and get started.
Welcome back, amazing thinkers. I'm Sue Sabella, your Great Minds teacher. Let's see what we need for today. Today we'll need Journey of a Pioneer, your journal, and a pencil. So please pause here to gather what you need and just hit play when you're ready to continue. What is the important message in Journey of a Pioneer? Today we'll be exploring that together. A challenge is a difficult task or a problem. Olivia's family had a difficult task along their journey. They needed to go over the mountain. Their response was to lighten their load and to let go of Mom's trunk and stove. Pioneers had many challenges, but they also had many responses. I'd like you to pretend that you have a challenge right now. You're on your way to school, and your car or your bus or your bicycle gets a flat tire. What could your response be to that challenge? Pause here to tell your learning partner or to do some powerful thinking about that, and just hit play when you're ready to continue. A response to this challenge could be that someone comes by to fix the tire. Whenever there's a challenge, there's always an opportunity to have a response. We definitely saw that throughout Journey of a Pioneer. Let's dig into that text more to explore more challenges and even more responses. As I read aloud page 19 from Journey of a Pioneer, I'm going to read aloud this page 2 times. The first time that I read it, I want you to tell your learning partner what you think the challenge is. And then we'll read it again and think about what the response was. Ready? Here we go. First, listen for the challenge. Most nights, we just want to rest. I count backward to get to sleep. It keeps me from wondering how close the howling animals are. Men take turns sitting watch to protect the camp. What was the challenge? What was Olivia worried about? Tell your learning partner or tell me. Howling animals definitely presented a challenge to Olivia and to the pioneers. Olivia wants to rest, but the sounds of the wolves scare her. The camp must be watched at night. Those are definitely challenges. Now I'm going to read the page again, and I want you to think about what was the response to those challenges. Here we go. Most nights, we just want to rest. I count backward to get to sleep. It keeps me from wondering how close the howling animals are. Men take turns sitting watch to protect the camp. Pause here to tell your learning partner or to tell me what the responses were to Olivia having difficulty falling asleep and also the camp needing somebody to watch. Just hit play when you're ready to continue. Olivia's response to the howling animals was she counted backwards to try to sleep, and we saw that on page 19. Also, because the camp needed to be watched at night, men take turns sitting watch. We also heard that on page 19. Here's another section from Journey of a Pioneer. At first, I'd like you to read this to yourself and then try to find the challenge and response on your own. You can point to the challenge and then point to the response. Or you can tell your learning partner what you think the challenge and the response is. Take time here to read, to think, and to share, and just hit play when you're ready to continue.
Okay, so let's read the paragraph. It says, today we said our last goodbyes. Grandma hugged me so tight I almost stopped breathing. Ma cried when friends gave her a friendship quilt. Pa had tears in his eyes too. I wondered why everyone was so sad. Ma told me later that we might not see many of these people ever again. I didn't want to believe her, but Ma never lies. So what do you think the challenge is in that paragraph? So I think that the challenge is that they're having to say goodbye to these people and say goodbye to her grandma, as she might never get to see them again. So what is her response to that? So in the response, it says that Ma cries, so that was her mom's response. Pa had tears in his eyes, that was her dad's response. And she said, I didn't want to believe her. So she didn't want to believe her, but she knew that Mom wasn't a liar, so she had to believe it. So her response was that she realized she might never see her family again. Right. Let's keep going.
As I read this section, I notice a challenge right away. When it says, today we said our last goodbyes, Grandma hugged me so tight I almost stopped breathing. I imagine that would be a challenge for Olivia and for her family to say goodbye, knowing that they might not see these people again or for a very long time. Ma cried when friends gave her a friendship quilt. Pa had tears in his eyes too. When people cry when something is sad, that's a response to a challenge. Please pause here to create a challenge and response T-chart in your journal. Once your journal is set up and your pencil is ready, just hit play to continue.
Okay, so we are on page 72 in your knowledge and response journal. So get out your journal. Okay, we're on page 72 today. And go ahead and set up your chart, challenge and response on page 72. Yeah, that's better. You can actually see the whole word response. All right, so go ahead and pause the video and get this set up and then hit play when you're ready. And don't forget today's date, 12-7.
As I read this section of Journey of a Pioneer, remember to pause my reading so you can jot down each challenge and each response in your journal. Ready? Here we go. After endless prairies, we finally reach the mountains, but climbing the steep sides is hard work. To go up, we have to lighten our load, which means dumping Ma's stove and trunk. To get down, we tie rope to a tree and then the back of the wagon. Then we slowly let out the rope. The Rocky Mountains are too steep. Luckily, we used a flat, wide path through them called the South Pass. Oregon Territory is close. Pause here to listen again or to jot more challenges and responses in your journal, and then just hit play when you're ready to move on to the next section.
Okay, so let's talk about this section, okay? So we need to figure out what is the challenge here, and then we're going to look for the response. So what is this passage mostly talking about? What was the challenge in this part? So I think that the challenge in this part is that climbing the steep sides of the mountain is hard. That's what they're talking about mostly, about what they have to do to be able to excuse me, to be able to get over the mountains. So that is the challenge, that it's hard. So in your journal on the challenge side, we need to write that it is hard to climb the steep sides of the mountain. So if you need to pause the video so that you can copy this down, please do that. Okay, so now we're going to go back and we're going to read it again to figure out what the response was. Okay, so we're looking for the response to climbing the mountains was hard work. After endless prairies, we finally reached mountains, but climbing the steep sides is hard work. To go up, we have to lighten our load, which means dumping Ma's stove and trunk. Does that explain how they responded to the challenge? What did they do in order to get up the mountain easier? It says right here, to go up, we have to lighten our load, which means dumping Ma's stove and trunk. I think that is the response, okay? So we need to write that on our response side. So they have to lighten their load. They have to lighten their load, which means leaving Ma's stove and trunk. Okay. So on that page, we need to write down our response. They have to lighten their load, which means leaving Ma's stove and trunk. And then just to make sure that we don't get our challenges and responses mixed together, I'm going to draw a line to separate it from any more that we write after this, okay? So if you need to pause, go ahead and pause and copy this down and then push play when you're ready to move on. Go to the next section now, okay?
I'll be reading pages 20 to 21. If you'd like to read these pages on your own in your own copy of the book, please feel free to pause here to read and gather your own challenges and responses. If you'd like to gather your challenge and responses along with me, I'll read these 2 pages aloud. And remember, just pause so you can jot down each challenge and then each response. Ready? Here we go. I try to be brave when we cross rivers, but it can be cold, wet, and scary. When the rivers are low, we just walk across. When the rivers are high, we wait until they are lower, and then the oxen pull the wagons across. As we cross, we watch the fast-moving river currents. Yesterday, 1 man drowned and 2 wagons tipped over. The families lost everything. Pause here to listen again. So you can scroll back to do that. And to listen for those challenges and also the responses. You'll pause here to work in your journal and then just hit play when you're ready to continue.
Okay, so let's look at pages 20 and 21 in your book. This is page 20 and 21. So it says, I try to be brave when we cross rivers, but it can be cold, wet, and scary. Does that sound like a challenge right there in the very first sentence? I think it sounds like a challenge. It's like it's something that would be challenging to get over, to being cold, wet, and scared all the time. So I think that should be our next challenge, that it is cold, wet, and scary to cross rivers. So let's pause and put that in your journal, and then we'll go back and read it, see what the response is. Okay, so let's go back and read it again. I try to be brave when we cross rivers, but it can be cold, wet, and scary. I think that the response is actually in that same sentence too. How does Olivia respond to being cold and wet and scared? Very first part of that sentence. I try to be brave. So her response is that she's trying to be brave to deal with it. So that is her response. So let's put that on the response side. Olivia tries to be brave. And just like last time, I'm going to put a line underneath it to separate it from our next one. So make sure you have this copied down on page 72. Okay, let's keep reading. That was only the first sentence of that page. There's probably more. Oh, wait, I didn't mean to do that. Okay, so when the rivers are low, we just walk across. When the rivers are high, we wait until they are lower, and then the oxen pull the wagons across. As we cross, we watch the fast-moving currents. Yesterday, 1 man drowned and 2 wagons tipped over. The families lost everything. What is that telling you about how it is to cross the river? What happens when the rivers are high? So it says when the rivers are high, they have to wait because there's fast moving currents. A man drowned, the wagons are tipped over. So that tells me that when the rivers are high, it's very dangerous to cross. So I'm going to write, it is dangerous to cross the rivers when they are high. So go ahead and pause and get that one. All right, now let's go back and listen for the response. We're going to read that section again. When the rivers are low, we just walk across. When the rivers are high, we wait until they are lower, and then the oxen pull the wagons across. So what is their response when the rivers are high? That's right. They have to wait until the river is lower, and then they let the oxen pull them across. So on the response side, we're going to write, they wait until they are lower, and then the oxen pull the wagons across. And I'm going to draw a line underneath it to separate my response. So here's so far we have 3 challenges that Olivia has faced and 3 responses to what Olivia and the pioneers have faced. Please make sure that you have all 3 of these copied down on page 72 of your journal. If you need to pause. All right, let's go ahead and get back to our video.
What kind of characteristics did pioneers have in order to face these challenges? Another way of saying this is, how could you describe the pioneers or the settlers? What kind of people were they? Did they run away from a challenge? I don't think so. They seemed pretty tough considering all the challenges that they had to respond to. When we think of words that we can use to describe the pioneers or the settlers, we're really talking about their characteristics. One of their characteristics was they were cautious. When the river water was high, they tried to wait for it to lower. When they heard howling animals, they were cautious and put people on watch. They were also very inventive and very creative. When they had to go down the mountain, they attached a rope so the wagon would not go down so fast. Like we mentioned earlier, the pioneers were tough people. They had many challenges, but they worked together. They created things to help them along their way. And they were also very cautious as they went along their journey on the Oregon Trail. You've been doing some very powerful thinking, and it's a great time to take a stretch break. Pause here to take a break, and just hit play when you're ready to continue. How do I use clearly explained details in my paragraphs? Let's take a look at the prompt from the focusing question task that will come up in our next lesson. Write an informative paragraph with clearly explained details to answer the following question. What challenges do the pioneers face and how do they respond? Support your response using evidence from the following text. Journey of a Pioneer by Patricia J. Murphy. Today, you've gathered evidence about the challenges and the responses that the pioneers had as they moved west. Right now, you'll be choosing 2 pieces of evidence that you'll be using in the focusing question task. At this time, I'd like you to open up your journal to your challenge and response T-chart. I'd like you to circle 2 challenges that the pioneers had and the responses that they used to meet those challenges. Pause here to work in your journal. You'll read over all of your T-chart entries and pick the 2 that you would like to write about in your focusing question task. Take your time and read through all of your entries before you choose. Just hit play when you're ready to continue.
Okay, so let's look at our journal, page 72.
Let's take
That's Miss Bella. Okay, so on page 72 of our journal, we have 3 challenges and 3 responses that we can choose from. We're going to choose 2. Okay. So our first one is, it is hard to climb the steep sides of the mountains. And they responded with, they have to lighten their load, which means leaving Ma's stove and trunk. That's one challenge and response. Our second one was, it is cold, wet, and scary to cross rivers. And the response was, Olivia tries to be brave. Our third challenge and response was, it is dangerous to cross the rivers when they are high. And the response was, they wait until they are lower and then the oxen pull the wagons across. So what you're going to do is you're going to choose 2 challenges and responses, okay? I am going to choose, because I want to talk about just the river. So I'm going to choose the last 2 as my points. So I'm going to circle these 2. So you're
a look at some possible.
I don't know what happened. Hold on. Okay, there we go. I don't know what happened there. So you're going to choose 2 and you're going to circle the 2 that you were planning on using. Okay. So go ahead and do that now. Pause the video and then do that. And then when you're done, go ahead and push play.
Let's take a look at some possible topic statements. As I read these topic statements out loud, if I read one that would connect to the evidence that you've circled, pause and tell your learning partner or point to that topic statement. Here we go. Being a pioneer meant you would face challenges. Pioneers couldn't be afraid of a challenge because they had to face many. Pioneers worked hard to face challenges well. Pioneers faced many challenges on their journey on the Oregon Trail. Which topic statement would tell your reader what your evidence is about? Point to the one that works best for you.
Okay, so as an example, I would choose to use pioneers couldn't be afraid of a challenge because they had to face many, because I talk in mine about my choices about how Olivia was brave. So her not being able to be afraid kind of relates to mine. So what I want you to do is look at these 4 possible topic statements. Think about the 2 pieces of challenge and response evidence that you have circled, and which ones go together. I want you to pick one. And then on page 73 of your journal, I want you to write down the topic statement that you chose to use, okay? So like on my page 73, I'm going to write down that one sentence. Pioneers couldn't be afraid of a challenge. So you can be writing yours down right now also on page 73. You can pause the video if you need to, but I want you to have your topic statement written on page 73 at the top. Okay, so on page 73, I wrote topic statement, and then I wrote the topic statement out that I'm going to be using. Pioneers couldn't be afraid of a challenge because they had to face many. Right? So make sure you have your topic statement written down. All right, now let's get back to our video.
That's right, there's a check mark in the corner, and you know what that means. Your teacher will take this opportunity to check in with you to see if you're all set up and ready for the focusing question task. Today, you'll write a topic statement to answer this question. What challenges do the pioneers face, and how do they respond? You just pointed to a topic statement that matched the evidence that you selected. You can use the topic statement that you pointed to, or you can write one on your own. If you need to go back to that slide, you can just scroll back. Once you write your topic statement, you'll review your topic statement to make sure it matches the evidence that you selected or circled in your journal for your informative paragraph. Pause here to write your topic statement and to check it against your evidence. Just hit play when you're ready to wrap up our video lesson.
Okay, so in your journal, you need to make sure that you have your topic statement written out. You chose it and wrote it on page 73. You have 2 pieces of evidence that you circled on page 72. You need to make sure that your evidence and your topic statement go well together, okay? That's all that we're going to do in the writing today. We'll actually write it tomorrow.
You've learned so much about settlers. You've learned about their challenges and also their responses. Share that knowledge with others. Teach others. And I will see you again very soon.
All right, so that is all that we have for today. That was the lesson. So everything that you have to do for work today was done together in class. You should have done the challenge and response chart, circled the 2 pieces of evidence that you were going to use, And on page 73, you copy down the topic statement from the screen that you are going to use for your focus question task tomorrow. Okay. So right now we've already got our topic statement. You've got your 2 pieces of evidence. So tomorrow, all we're going to have to do is put them all together and come up with a conclusion for your writing activity. All right, so that's it. That's all I have for you today. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you again in a little while for phonics. Bye, guys.